Hello and welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And from wonderful Trinidad today, Cyndee Dhalai. Hello, Cyndee.
Hi, Philip.
All right, I promised you that I will mispronounce your name, but actually I think I got it right. So there you go.
Yes, you did. Yes.
It's reverse psychology on myself.
Yes.
Well, I guess our guests think that they didn't hear correctly, as is Trinidad. So maybe let's start at the beginning, before the beginning. Maybe tell the people where is Trinidad for the ones who have maybe never heard about this island.
Okay. It's actually two islands called Trinidad and Tobago. It's located in the Caribbean, closest to Venezuela and to South America.
Right. So I think people now have an idea. Actually, I never asked, but is Trinidad a popular destination for all those cruise ships, or is out of the way?
Yeah, actually, it is very popular for tourists and stuff like that and thing. It has a very vibrant culture. Food is certainly different because it's a multicultural palette. And there are lots of very interesting places for tourists to visit, especially Tobago. But Trinidad also has like a lot of cultural sites and activities. And plus, we also are famous for carnival.
Yes, of course. I know. But I think I would skip all of this and just focus on the food.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, then you get a diversity of foods because there are a lot of like local dishes that are endemic to Trinidad and Tobago only. People might do variations of it, but you have to really taste it in Trinidad and Tobago to really know and get the true taste of it.
If you look at me, you know I'm a total foodie.
Yeah.
So that's all I care for. All right.
Yes,
But now we're getting serious. We're always starting the podcast with inviting the guest to give a small self-introduction with background, just a couple of minutes so people get to know you before we get into the subjects of this episode.
Okay. Well, my name is Cyndee Dhalai. I've had many roles in life. I've been a child, a sister, a teacher, a wife, a mother, a counselor, friend, a patient, and a widow. And now I'm a writer and poet. And I've lived in my country most of my life. I've visited other places and stuff like that and thing. And like you mentioned, Trinidad and Tobago is multicultural. So I was exposed to a lot of different cultures and races and ethnicities and belief and practices. And like I told you, I had like a lot of experiences across the spectrum. And I
Right.
guess what like most people would experience in life, the battles you go through with spirituality, with facing that, with medical conditions, with loss. And the one thing I found out is that you are much stronger than you ever think yourself to be when you face something in life. And no matter how much harder it gets, I have found, at least for me, that there's always something that can lift you up in life.
This is a nice short introduction. I'm already a little bit smiling because I have a bit more context than our viewers who are thinking, why is he smiling? Well, let's just hang in there, I'd say. But first of all, I would like to make an announcement. Dear viewer, if you stay to the end of the podcast, we will hear a beautiful piece of poetry from Sydney, but only at the very end as a goodie. So, but let's be sneaky and make it not really at the end for the people who are using the cursor on YouTube to say, I will go straight
fast
to the
forward.
end.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I will
fast forward.
sneakily put it somewhere where nobody will find it.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. Now we're starting laughing, we're starting funny, and we will try to keep it a bit light at the beginning. And I think we will hear a story of transformation today. This is not a story about a therapist necessarily. It's not the story of a spiritual practitioner per se. It's a story of personal experience, personal struggle, personal hardship and overcoming it through belief in a broader sense of the word. I think this is where we're going to end up before the poetry that is. But maybe let's spend a couple of minutes and talk about Trinidad, the cultures, all these different religions, all of this multicultural, and take us a little bit through this whole circle out there. Do cultures get along? Do cultures learn from each other? Do cultures connect, divide? Just take whatever you want from all the richness around you and tell us a little bit about how it moved you, how it influenced you, and how you see this melting pot happening.
Well, actually, my country has always been like a mix of ethnicity because given like the history of it, like there were like slavery, then there were indentured laborers, and then like, so a lot of different ethnicities and types of people were brought into the country. So what you find is that they learned over time to incorporate and to mingle with each other. Now, of course, initially, and this was like hundreds of years ago, there would have been like the barriers and sick. But basically now what you find is that people are so integrated and so mixed up that cultures overlap. And everybody celebrates all the festivals that there are in Trinidad. Everybody celebrates Easter. And like there's a East Indian part of society, like who are like Hindus, Muslims, and everybody celebrates Eid and Diwali. And everybody celebrates Christmas. And like there's African Day and there's Indian Arrival Day, which celebrates when the Africans keep, and those sort of things. And Spiritual Baptist Day, which is another religious ceremony. And everybody partakes in it, and they wear the clothes and they cook the foods. So we have actually integrated a lot of different cultures and ethnicities. And sometimes there is a lot of like intermarriages and interunions between the races. And sometimes some people you kind of like you can be a mix of like Chinese, Caucasians, African, Indian. So you're a real mix. And on one side you may have this, and on the other side you may have these sort of different religions. But basically, I guess at the heart of it, Trinidadians are extremely mixed in terms of, and then they also enjoy the foods because like to the East Indians, like they had like doubles and like pie and certain foods. And then like you have pilau and you have Chinese food, and everybody loves these things and they all eat it. And we have like bacon shark, so all those are Trinidadian foods, and all Trinidadians eat it actually, all except me because I'm allergic to fish and curry. So
the question that comes to mind
is a good mixing pot. Now, of course, I guess in all societies, you will have like traces of racism and like cultural backlogs. And like I grew up in a kind of strict East Indian home, and where you could mix with people, but it was frowned upon if you got involved with somebody of different races and stuff like that. And I kind of had the tendencies to have a multicultural friendship with everybody, and I spoke to everybody. So, and then the schools we went to, even though like you grew up in a certain religion, the schools I went to were like Presbyterian schools. They were run by the Presbyterian board, which was English. So I grew up knowing all about Hinduism and about Islam and about Christianity in its various sects, whether it was Catholicism or Christianity or Spiritual Baptist. So you grew up knowing a lot because you went to a school where you encountered a lot of people of different races and different religions and different beliefs and like how the family structure was and stuff like that. So you grew up in a sense of being involved in everything, but then sometimes your religion kind of kept you in a bag or in a box where, you weren't supposed to do this, you weren't supposed to dress this way, you weren't supposed to really mix with these people or whatever. And I would say I was rebellious. It's just that I kind of saw life through my own eyes, and I made my own choices of what I wanted to do.
The question why I asked you is because I'm I'm interested, I think everybody's interested, if that mixing brings tolerance or respecting ancestors, but being open to others. So if boundaries,
it does.
The question I have is if certain boundaries bring harmony or the total mixing is harmony, but then what will happen to the cultures? Will they mix so much like it becomes a new culture? So I'm very curious, Trinidad, like in 100 years from now, when all the young people maybe are less connected to their ancestral heritage, will there be in 100 years from now a Trinidad religion that will have incorporated everything? Or how do you see these things?
No, you see, what happened is that even though I say we incorporate everything, people still have their religions and the practices that they follow. But it is, in a sense, in that even though you have your practices, you still are open to other people participating in it. For instance, if there is like a Diwali celebration, people will wear the clothes and they will go out to functions and they would cook these foods on like at their homes or whatever, or go visit friends. And they would light the diyas and they would attend the functions and they would go visit the cultural center that is set up, and buy the clothes and stuff. But that is how the religion and the society cultures, that is how they keep it. But they expose it to everybody else to enjoy it, but you also keep it intact. The same way with the African culture, like when they have like Spiritual Baptist Day or we have Emancipation Day in Trinidad, and people wear the clothes and stuff like that, but they keep to the traditions, and they remember the heritage, the history of how the country came about. Same thing with Muslims. It's like they celebrate Eid and everybody would dress up in the clothes and they would make the food and stuff like that and thing. But in that way, you are inviting people to see things about your religion and about your culture. But at the same time, you are keeping your structure and you're keeping your belief inherent in you. So we mix, but we don't mix to the extent that you lose what is the basis or what are the basic principles and morals and values that are attached to each culture and each religion. And while some traditions may have changed a bit, because remember, these traditions were brought from the country of origin. And when we came there, they were adapted to the people who are living here at the time. And there is openness and there is acceptance, while at the same time, you are keeping to your beliefs and practices and religious traditions and things like that and stuff or whatever. So it is a mixing. So 100 years from now, I don't think there will be like a Trinidad religion. There will still be everybody, each ethnic group and each religious sector or religious practices will still adhere to their practices and their beliefs and their traditions. But they have, as society changes, everything has to evolve. So they will fit to suit. But what is really important to the religion, the core essence of the religions, will still be kept.
I think this is an important message because Trinidad, as you said, is such a unique setting. And so many people are afraid of multicultural. So many people are afraid of this world government and all of these things. But my personal life observation has exactly shown to me what you just now explained, that if it is a valuable, peaceful community and tradition, and this goes with food and colors and dressing and certain rituals, and it's done without pressure and without hate and without negative elements, then people can carry it on and people would not necessarily mix by losing themselves. So I think what you just said also confirms my personal life observation and would take the fear from a lot of people who are so afraid. And because if Trinidadians do not lose their tradition in this insane melting situation, well, then nobody else should.
I think what happened is that the fear comes from the fact that people think when something new, remember, it's like when you encounter something new, you will battle it because you don't understand much about it. It's an unknown. And most people are afraid to take a risk of having all these things happen in different religions, different beliefs and practices coming in. But then you have to see that is, sometimes it's a fear that has grown through the ages. and you inherit it probably from your parents and ancestors and stuff like that. Or we live in a society now that, okay, because you come from here or you come from here or you speak this way, you don't belong, which is not right, because as far as I know, everybody belongs, because this earth wasn't given to this one person, it was given to everybody. And yes, we may live in different sectors of society, we may live in different countries, we may speak different languages, we may look a different way, but when you cut us, don't we all bleed the same way? Isn't the color of blood the same, red, all the same? So what really is the difference? The difference is how we perceive to look at it.
Did I say it correct? Trinidadians, or did I make this up?
Yeah, it's Trinidadians. No, it's Trinidadian and Tobagonians, but we say Trinidadians to refer to the both countries, as to say.
See, reading helps with education.
Yes, it does.
Because you know that I'm an Naipaul fan. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Like my post about the culture, that was like many, many years ago. That's what, like, it was more basic, and society wasn't as progressed as it is now. But everything he spoke of actually was true of Indian culture to a certain extent.
All right. Now, unfortunately, the fun part is over.
Yes.
We have to go a little bit deeper and look a bit more your life story, and that's why we're here today. So, but I wanted to start with nice food and smells and colors and brightness, because maybe listening to your life story from the visual background of a Caribbean island with all of this buzzing and fuzzing and all of these women in saris and all of these things, just maybe makes your story even more dramatic, or just points out that contrast to the surrounding that you're at. So maybe with your own words, would you a little bit bring us slowly into some of the turbulences that you have faced, and then much later we will talk about the way you have come out of it as positive and shining as strong as we see you here today.
Okay, well, like I explained, I grew up in Indian background, in that you have this, religion, and you have like certain things you're allowed to do, you're not allowed to do. And like I mentioned, I have a tendency to I like people. So I would speak to everybody and I would do my own thing and stuff like that. And very often, I would bring into question when people do things, because I would always say, well, I have a brain in my head, and I have eyes to see. So don't tell me that, you have to be open with people and you have to be honest, and it's not good to lie to people. Yet at the same time, I'm seeing you doing it. And it's happening all over. And when I question, it's like, no, you're not supposed to ask questions, Stop doing that. You're causing trouble. And I didn't understand the reason why you couldn't really have close friends who were boys. Now, that's the thing. And most of my friends tended to be boys. And remember, this is an East Indian culture, and it wasn't really accepted to have a lot of friends who were boys. And my best friend was a boy, actually. And, and I would say, but why? And they said, well, it's not accepted or whatever. So I said, and I would always say, well, why? Because it's a person, and we get along and we talk and stuff like that and thing. And I guess it kind of started from there, because I would always ask questions.
This is a very important sentence. I must repeat it. It is not accepted. This is something that I fear there are so many people in the Western world who are not so familiar with Indian culture, who know the dramatic of this sentence. It's unknown.
You see, you grew up. You weren't allowed to dress a certain way. You weren't allowed to mix with people when you went out, and talking to boys and things like that was not something. Now remember, I grew up in the 1970s, 1980s, which was a while ago. Now it has drastically changed. Everybody can go. You could go and meet boys and do things and stuff like that and things. But at the time I grew up, it was you couldn't talk. A boy could not be your friend. And I couldn't understand why, because I went to school with boys. It was a mixed school. We went primary school together. Okay, yes, I went to all-girls school, but I had boys who I met when I went to the library who are my friends. And there were boys who I went to school with who, as we grew up and they went to a different secondary school, we would meet and, you would talk and stuff like that and think. And why was it difficult now? Why couldn't I talk to them now that we were older when we went to primary school together? You understand what I'm saying? So it was like that. And I would always get in trouble about, you're not supposed to do that. Because I remember I had a friend who went to the US to study. And before he went, he gave me his address and said, write to me, whatever. And no, I had pen pals from across the world. And I would, at that time, you actually wrote letters to pen pals, not like now where you are online and stuff like that. You actually wrote letters and posted it. So I had pen pals from Australia and Germany and all over the world. And I love writing, and we would be back and forth and they'd send you pictures. And then when my friend went away and he wrote to me, now, because I would get letters from people all over the world, nobody thought anything of it, because this was just a friend writing, and I didn't think anything of it because it was just I was writing to all these people. Some were male, some were female. And there was nothing wrong with it. And then, my parents found out that this was somebody who I knew who had gone away and who was writing me and I was writing them. And there was a lot of confusion and carrying on and stuff like that, and I was being shameful and I was disrespectful and a whole set of things you get. So I said, but what is wrong with me writing this friend who went away? Because I have pen pals who are boys and I write to them. So what is the difference between me writing somebody I knew? I didn't say anything wrong with what was the trouble? Well, to make the long story short, it was letters would come home. And I remember I'm at school still. And they would not give me the letters. And eventually my friends stopped writing and we lost contact and whatever. But that was an example of how it was that you weren't supposed to have a boy as a friend unless you're going to get married. And you couldn't have boyfriends. And you couldn't go to parties. Unless it was a school function or whatever, or graduation, you could not go out with a boy. And that was part of it. And then I remember marrying out of the religion was not something that you normally would do. And my husband was not a Hindu. He didn't have my background. And when we decided to get married, my parents were no, they don't like him. They don't approve of it. No. And they came up with 101 condemnations. And the choice they gave me was you either get married to him or don't talk, or the choice was him or them in a short term. And I said, well, listen, I don't have to remain with you for the rest of my life. And this is the person I want to get married to. And long story short, I got disowned. And that was it. And they have not spoken to me. Well, actually, we have not had any contact since I got married. And that was over 30-something years ago.
Yes.
And that is what it was like. That was culture. So my husband and I had to start off basically by ourselves, and we were both young. And
I think you said it's a religious gap, that he was not Hindu, but also there's a caste gap. Did I remember this correctly?
No, he wasn't a Hindu. And the fact that he didn't have the same background as I did in the terms of family and stuff like that and things. And they didn't approve of his family. And they found he was too dark. Well, I guess you could say, in a sense, it was everything came up and they found 101 issues with it. And because basically arranged marriages at that time did take place.
I have a question for you. I'm always wondering that I know that Indian, I have, I think, some understanding a little bit of a microscopic understanding how Indian society works. And I was always wondered that first of all, India is also a huge melting pot of religion and traditions. And so that's why it could be understandable that each and every group try to stick to its own, to to basically defend its own.
It's its own kind, I should say.
But also India has always been a country of mass population, more populated than other parts of the world. So you always like so much of the Japanese culture is rooted in the fact that this is a small country with a lot of people. So they have to be very polite and respect each other because simply they have very little space that they can occupy. So they must do it kindly, otherwise it just will explode all the time. And India, if you've ever been to India and see how tense it is, how many people...
It is. It is a lot. Yeah, it is. And like part of the Indian culture is, and they still do it, don't you hear about it? It's like arranged marriages were a kind of thing that a lot of people did to keep the culture, and that is how they kept like the different families and stuff like that together. And I said, no, if I was ever going to get married, I was going to get married to somebody I want to get married to. And the only because I never really expected to get married anyway. So I didn't want to get married, but that was another thing that was frowned on because you're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have children. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. And I was like, no, I wanted to be an archaeologist and I wanted to travel all over the world and do things and stuff or whatever. And of course, parents will come in and you have to certain things because of the family background and stuff. And when I told them, no, I didn't want to get married to somebody like that, I would choose the person I want to get married to. And when I told them I was going to get married to my husband, nobody supported me. Everybody was like, no, you're wrong. That's not something you should do. I mean, I'm talking about friends and brothers and sisters and people in the temple and stuff like that. And nobody really supported me. And they were like, no, you're doing wrong. You're being disrespectful. You're wayward. Well, they used that word that time. You're wayward and stuff like that. You're reckless. And I said, well, no, this is my choice. And this is what I want to do.
But it's so basically you lost your family in this young age. You lost friends.
I was 21 and I got disowned.
You lost the community that you grown up with. So I think very little people can even understand or grasp. Well, it's one thing to move to a country. Yeah? It's one thing when you're in that age and you have to move to a country because of the job of the father or whatever. And yes, you lose all your friends and surrounding, you start over. It cannot be compared, as you said, when you've been cut out and broken out.
Because it was a choice. You see, people nowadays like, okay, it's easy because, you finish high school, you get a job, you move out of your family's home, you live on your own. That's part of the culture. That means that is a choice. That's a free choice you can make and you still have contact with your families and friends. But when you are given the choice of it's either this or that was it. And I said, okay, fine, listen, I don't have to live with you all for the rest of my life and I will make my choice. And I took my choice and I lived by it. I mean, it was difficult because, I went from like a family setting to just, on my own, trying to do things I've never done in my entire life. Because I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do a lot of stuff because I went to school and I did O-levels and A-levels, and I was working, but like it was a family background, so it was everybody together. And then suddenly it went there, but my husband and I managed and we did very well together.
It just shows what kind of strong person you are, and maybe that also prepared you for the things in life that came next. Because this is, unfortunately, also part of the beginning of our story. Yeah. And we're coming...
And then after that, now, we worked hard, and I had 2 children who turned out to be, thankfully, I always say, thank God, nothing like me. Then I would have been But no, seriously though, I have 2 really, really great children. And to say that I like them, I love them because they're my children, but I also like them because of the people that they are. There's a difference between that. You can like your children, you can love your children, but you may not like the people that they are. But I love my children and I like the way that they are, the people that they turn out to be. And then my husband shift jobs and I had to adjust to like schedules and working shift and whatever. And then my body began to get ill. And it was like random things, like I would fall down, like my pregnancies are very, very difficult. And then I started like getting all these things happening to my body. And you would go to the doctor and they would try things and they would give things, but nothing was working. And then I started developing allergies to medication. In that I tried every time they give me something, I'll get an allergic reaction every time. And then it got to the point where my body started shutting down and I couldn't walk properly. Now, I am very active and I love driving and I'm very independent. So I would drive to wood, drive home, drive my children to classes, do things, you know. And then my husband was busy because he worked like 12-hour shifts. So I was the one who would go grocery and do this and go all over, and my children, you know, go all over with them and stuff like that. And then suddenly now I was having trouble walking. And I started walking with a cane. And then it got to the point where I started falling down more regularly. And I ended up having to retire from teaching because I couldn't walk. And I was getting my body was getting all these symptoms. And I started doing tests. So I went to the doctor and they started doing blood tests. And every time they do a blood test, I would get like around where they did the blood test. So they found that was very strange because it was like I was allergic to the needles they were putting in me. And after about a year of testing and back and forth, and then I finally ended up quarreling with the doctor. Because I said, listen, because we did tests and stuff and they found out I had lupus. And then I got it confirmed by another specialist and they said, well, I had lupus. And then it was like a combination of different illnesses. It was like there was lupus, Jacob atrophy, arthritis, and Jacob's Raynaud's phenomenon. I had vascular. It was like a myriad of things. I had chronic kidney disease and stuff like that. And then I went away and I got it confirmed that I had all these things in my body. And it was recommended that when I come back to Trinidad, that because the lupus is really, really bad. And at that time, there was this drug called Plaquenil that had been introduced in the market. So the doctors and them coordinated with the doctors in Trinidad in a nursing home. And they said, well, you know, you can try this when you get back because you need to control the symptoms because you have a lot of associated things that are coming up because of what is in your body. And we came back and the first time I took it's usually the way they did it was you take it in like, you take one trial first and then the next week you take the other one. So I did it. And the first one, I had a reaction, but like it was manageable. And then the second time they gave me Plaquenil, they had me in the ICU, but I was feeling kind of congested and I really don't like closed spaces. So I said, okay, I said to my husband, let's post it outside until whatever. And then the doctor who was like who was in charge of the ICU and things like that, he came up and said, so we were talking, he said, what you doing outside? So I said, well, I just needed some air. So they said, Cyndee, I think we need to go inside now. So I was like, no, I'm fine, you know, whatever. And by the time we got back inside the room, I flatlined. And they had to resuscitate me. And I gained consciousness 18 and a half hours afterwards. And that was the first time. And then they said, Cyndee, you're allergic to the drug. And from that, my body started going down. And from that time until 2013, I flatlined. I lost 4 years of my life because I think that's when my body just took over and things started happening. And I flatlined a few times. Every time they tried something with me, I would flatline. And so they said, I'm allergic to all medication. There is nothing that I can take, not even a baby Panadol. I can't take that. And I have chronic kidney disease, but they can't test it because it's like a catch-22. What they would use to test to see how bad it is would kill me. Because the medication they would inject into my body would kill me. Just to find out how bad the kidney disease is and if it could kill me. So it's like a paradox. And I said, listen, okay, fine. And then my body started going down. And like I told you, what I know about the illness and what happened to me was my body was present, but I wasn't present because it was like a fog. And every time I flatline, I'll come back and I would like have a brief period of being, what should I say? A brief period of being present. And then something else would happen and my body would go down. And the only thing I know about that is what my husband told me and my children would tell me. I'm reading the medical reports because like I have a big tick file with the doctor's medical report and testing did and stuff like that and thing. The worst thing was in 2013 when my whole body got blood toxemia. And they said it could have just been from an insect bite. They never knew the cause of it. And I got blood toxemia in my whole entire body. It was turning literally black, they said. And I ended up in the hospital for over 3 weeks. And they couldn't really treat me because I'm allergic to all drugs. So all they could do was monitor me, and I was not there. And they said how if I went outside, I would be dead in half an hour. And they weren't sure. That was the thing. Every time I flatlined and I came back, they were never sure if I would be like mentally, I would have mental capacity. Because like the reaction was always so intense. And I did flatline a few times after everything. And that last time I came back and they weren't sure what was happening with me because I had zero immunity, I had zero platelets, I had zero blood count. And they were giving me blood transfusions, like 13 pints of platelet and 13 pints of blood every single day because I was rejecting it and my body was bleeding from all over and it had toxemia. And they were trying to drain fluids, but they couldn't find like veins and pulses and veins to put things in because it had all collapsed and they weren't sure what was going to happen. And they told my husband it was like a 5% chance that I would live. And I just woke up and I told them, the nurse, because like there was a private room, and the nurse, they had a 24-hour nurse and monitors and stuff like that and thing. And they said, I woke up, I got up, I pulled out all the tubes and I said, okay, I want to go home now. That was it. And that was the last time I got sick.
Well, I think for all the people who don't believe in miracles, well, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I tell everybody, because like, that was since 2013. I've not been to a single doctor. I don't take medications. I was in a wheelchair for over 11 and a half years. Right? Because I ended up not being able to walk and stuff. And that was one of the things with lupus. I have never been to a doctor since 2013. I don't take medications. I don't use anything. Even, like people say, try, natural homeopathic, because I'm allergic to all those things too. Even normal herbs, I'm allergic. People told me, well, why don't you try cannabis? No, I'm allergic. Why didn't you try this? I don't know. My body doesn't accept all these things or whatever. It does not work on me. So everybody keeps asking me, like, how it is you can be. And I said, well, I live by God's grace. Don't ask me. You have to ask him, because I never bothered to ask him why. And that's how it is with me.
One should, under no circumstances, say something funny in a moment like this. But there's just something, I'm so sorry, that is crossing my mind. I cannot hold it back. You just said that you are reacting allergic on homeopathic.
Yes.
Well, then maybe you could be the only person on earth who could prove that homeopathic actually works. Because there are millions of people and many medical doctors around the planet who would sign papers and papers that they can swear to their profession that homeopathic is just water and has no effect whatsoever. If you would actually be allergic on it, you could prove
I'm allergic to homeopathic. I am allergic to naturopath, because there are doctors in Trinidad who actually practice that, and they're really, really good. I mean, seriously, they're really, really nice doctors. I know them. You talk to them.
There are a lot of doctors in Europe who use homeopathic, but the official medical society and the official professors on university, they clearly state that homeopathic is just water and has no effect whatsoever. This is still stand of the research or stand of the medical profession that homeopathic don't work. I'm just making the fun part that you could be the only living person on earth who could prove that homeopathic actually works.
Oh,
sorry.
I was like,
it's just a phenomenon.
I know.
just a phenomenon.
Yeah.
But of course, it is not a moment of making jokes. But
no, the thing is like, I could talk about it and I could smile about it. And most people don't understand that. And I think that was, people think that looking at me, you don't look sick. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't sound sick. You didn't sound as if anything is wrong with you. And which was quite true because like when I was recovering, like I was still in a wheelchair and I couldn't go out and I had to be careful around people because like I have a thing in that I can pick up infections very easily because I am autoimmune and I am immune deficient to a large extent. So I can pick up very easily on people cold, and while somebody may have a cold, if it comes into me, it may be things. So like in the beginning, like everybody, like my family was like, don't go out, you can't do this. And then I really didn't want to go anywhere because, I was trying to recover and work in myself. How am I going to get through all of this? Because I had to learn to adjust to my new situation. And then after that, well, I adapted because I'm kind of stubborn. I learned to do a lot of stuff all on my own and do things. You cook and clean up and everything from a wheelchair. And I love baking and I did all those things. And in 2021, my husband died. And he only had a short illness. And that was like a shock because we didn't expect it to happen. Because I was the one who have this thing in my body for all these years and it's unpredictable. And yet I got through flatlining and all these things, being allergic to drugs. And he was sick for like 2 years and 2 months and 3 weeks and he died unexpectedly. And it was intense and he passed away. And somebody asked me, a relative, why didn't you die instead? On top of that, and people I would meet would be like, I know they weren't being mean, except for the first person I said who asked me why didn't I die instead. But other people, like when they saw me afterwards, they'd be like, oh no, we thought, we always expected you be the one to die first. And I would always answer, I said, well, maybe, I don't know. If you want to know the answer to that, maybe you should ask God because I never thought to ask him why. That's how it was. And so I got further ostracized because I was alive and I am alive. So a lot of people who I knew, who I thought were friends and family, they ostracized me for being alive. So I kind of had to readjust again to all these people blaming me for being alive. And I guess that's it. So I had to come through that. But one thing I do know is that I'm never alone. And I like who I am. And I like life. And I enjoy life. And everything that I've been through, yes, it has been hard. Yes, it has been a trial. Yes, it has been adjusting. But it's been a lesson too. And it helped to make me who I am. It helped to build things in me that I didn't know I contained. And it helped to show me that there is a much greater force in life than any of us can ever imagine.
This is the question I wanted to ask you because there might be a bit confusing with a lot of listeners right now. When you said ask God, it is always a bit of a difficult because the whole Western people will have such a specific conception of God. But of course, you're from a Hindu background and all this multicultural background. So let me ask you, who do you call? Who is the God that you call to ask?
God is good. I don't see, you see, we have put religion. Okay, people are going to get vexed with me or whatever. People are going to say whatever they want to say. I respect everybody's religion. I respect everybody's culture. I respect everybody's belief. But what I have to say is that if we all believe that God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and he's all powerful and he is God, then why can it not stand to reason that God can appear to different people at different times in different cultures, depending on their need. God has always adapted. If you ever realize that, if you read the Bible, if you read the Quran, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you read the Sai Baba, if you read Buddhism teachings, right? No matter what religion you read, it always comes back to one. And if we believe that there is one supreme being, one supreme God, no matter what name you call him, and if you believe he is so powerful and that he can do anything, why can you not believe then that when that God is adaptable and that he can come in the form to suit a culture and to suit a time period in life when certain people need direction? No, I'm not arguing for religion, but because I just believe there is one powerful being. No matter if you call him God or Yahweh or Allah or Buddha or Krishna or Brahma or Ram, or no matter what name you call him, it all comes back to one God. So when I say God, I mean the all-powerful, all-knowing, one supreme being.
What strikes me is, listening to your stories, is one element. I guess I'm having a strange ears. But what I like so much about your story, I mean, of course, I do not like you having to go through these experiences. But we, especially in the Catholic world, we have such a sometimes limited or a very structural concept, right? You go to Lourdes, you go to those specific places where spontaneous healing can happen. You go there, you pray, you ask for being healed, and then with God's grace, you get the spontaneous healing. The Catholic Church is quite big on those spontaneous healings, and interestingly enough, we have medical doctors to kind of certificate the spontaneous healing. And in your case, it always sounded to me that did you ask for it? Did you, in this time of wheelchair?
Actually, that is a strange thing. Like, my body was sick, but like I told you, I was not consciously here to say, in the sense that I said, oh God, because I never asked why I got ill. I never turned to God and said, because, okay, when I got the diagnosis that there was all these things wrong with me, and all these things lived in my body, and that, it's going to be unpredictable because you don't know how everything is going to react, because I already have anemia. I already am allergic to medication. I already am allergic to a lot of foods. And, my health was going down, basically. My body was failing and I couldn't walk. And when they told me, the doctor was like, well, yes, Cyndee, you have this and this and this and this and this. And all I said was, okay. And he said, okay. And I said, well, yeah, okay. And I had to retire from teaching. And part of that was that you had to go for medical examination to be certified medically unfit to no longer teach. You couldn't just say that. You had to show them that you had these conditions and you're unable to teach. So I remember they said I had to go see 3 psychiatrists to be sure. And additionally, I was on the insurance of my husband's work. And they found that I was too accepting, as a word I would use, of the diagnosis. And they said, well, okay, we need you to go to talk to these 2 sets of doctors to make sure that mentally I was okay. I think everybody was worried about the fact that I just took it and I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Fine. And I went to all these psychiatrists, and I would always tell everybody, I can't say I'm crazy because I'm probably the only person on earth who is certified sane by 5 psychiatrists. So I don't think anybody could ever say I'm crazy because I am sane. Yeah. I'm certified sane.
Cyndee, what is so fascinating, because maybe I didn't make my point clear, that the Catholic Christian world has such a structure where if this happens to you, you would go down on your knee and you would beg God for healing you. Okay. You would be in such a like a devout position, like, please God, please heal me. And then God's grace would, by extreme praying, extreme, catharsis, whatever, give you then his grace. While your story,
I was getting to it in that when I went to the doctors and they said, well, okay, they said that they couldn't understand my thinking, but they were happy. They said that they wish I could talk to their patients, because my thinking was that, why should I question God? Why should I ask, why did I get sick? Because there are millions of people around the world, children who are born. I mean, they come out of the womb and they have all these, they didn't ask for it either, but they have it. And sometimes people might be perfectly healthy and eat healthy and do things, and yet they might suddenly get heart attacks and stuff. And they said, well, oh, this was unexpected. So my view was that it happened. And I'm not going to ask God, why does this have to happen to me? This is so not fair. He'll do this. And I just said, no. I said, this is part of life. Yes, my body got ill, but so what? Millions of people get ill all over the world. I mean, things happen unfairly to people. Children are born with illnesses. They go through their whole life with things. Some children are born. I said, so why am I any different? So I'm not going to ask. And I never asked why. Up to this day, I have never said, God, why did this happen to me? Why did I have to go through all of this? Why am I suffering so much?
But did you ask God to get healed? Did you
no,
pray?
No, I didn't either.
Well,
because by the time I found out I got sick, that's when I went into the fog of going through, my body started taking over with all the illnesses, and I got sick, and then I would flatline, and then I'd have a little bit of I told you, clarity.
Yeah.
And then I would go through a next different sort of illness, like with my stomach or heart or something, and then I would flatline again, and then something else came up, and my toes and fingers were turning blue.
But did you
But I never asked.
But did you still feel faith or positiveness, or did you feel life?
I never thought. Yeah, I felt life, but the thing is that I was not afraid that I wouldn't get over it. And I was not afraid that this was going to be the end for me. I was not afraid that my whole life was going to be suffering. I don't know. That never entered my mind. It was like, okay, these things happen and it will go through and I will come out. And then when I started recovering in 2023, it was like, yes, I battled myself because I wanted to do the things I did before, but I couldn't do it because now my body was changed. But at no time did I ever feel incapable, or did I ever feel as if it was the end, or felt like giving up, because I don't know. In my head, I always said, there's a God.
Did you trust life? And did you trust?
I trusted God. I said, listen, I've come this far. I mean, I got through all of these things. I didn't ask for help. I didn't, because I wasn't conscious enough to ask for help. Right?
Yes.
And I just said, I'm just going to leave it be, because like I told you, all the things I've been through my whole life and things like that and stuff, whatever. What I did find is that every time I went through something, I learned something and I grew. I mean, all the being condemned and ostracized and criticized growing up and stuff like that and thing, whatever. In me, I assimilated all of that, and I saw that there were advantages in that, those bad things happening. And there are disadvantages if things turn out exactly how I wanted. Because if I didn't go through all the struggles that I did by being sick, then I would not have been able to be strong enough to find myself, or to be able to talk to people and inspire other people, and to be able to understand and see people as they are. Because if I had said, okay, life is so unfair and this is not what I want, and kept complaining and wallowing and, oh my God, why did this have to happen to me? And God is not fair and whatever that people go through. I mean, yes, we all go through it, right? But if I had let myself go into that, then I would have given up. I mean, And the fact that I am still breathing, the fact that I am still here is proof that there is something that works. There is a higher being that looks over after everything.
First of all, I will now already say goodbye. I would love to hear a couple of minutes if you would read of one of your latest work for us. But I will already say goodbye to the audience. And if anybody needs an inspirational story, then thank you so much for sharing, opening up, taking us on this journey through your life. And you said that this book, for anybody who got interest in your thinking, in your thoughts, in your strengths and inspiration, said it's on Amazon. It's available. I will put the links.
Yeah. They actually two books. Yeah. One is, first is the poetry book, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul by Cyndee. And the other one is Beautiful is the Price You Pay for Love. That's by, but I wrote that under pseudonym Faye Allian. I think I sent you the links for everything and stuff like that.
I will put everything down. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much from my side. And I hope you stayed with us. And here is the reward for staying with us for this 55 minutes conversation.
Okay. Oh, God, time flies fast. Okay. This is called Touch of the Divine. She sighed and felt as if she was buried in the depths of hell. Life was full, and then she fell. Even as the sun rises across the sky and the world brightens, the darkness within her heart and soul felt no lightning. It drips from the branches of life pervading all. Through every thought and action did it mold. Peace is a long abandoned longing and desolate dream, as the fingers of darkness pull the soul into its realm. The sun warms the awakening world and breath becomes a ghost, for its rays reach all except where it's needed most. So against the tide of endless hopelessness, a single hand shimmering, eternal, ethereal, offers promises. A soft voice rings inside the head and tugs the heart. This is not an ending, but a different part. Trust my child, for I've only dim your light. Have faith in me, and again you will shine true and bright. There must be darkness, trials, and penitence. Very few treasures the gifts that are freely given. And they never realize that seeing life in totality is the essence of fully living. Destiny never follows an amiable straight lane. It dispenses your joys, happiness, disappointment, and pain. How else can you learn who you really are and be capable of falling into the abyss without falling far? Now breathe and open and restart your inner fire. There is no unattainable dream to which you aspire. So take my hand, believe, and shine your glow. I have you now and always, no matter life's flows. You have a purpose that won't be undone. So release your past and blaze again like the sun. Let the past rest, live in the present, and in the future believe. For there's much more of life I have in store for you to receive.
Thank you very much.